resources to the members that allow them to actively pursue these sports. And what I mean by that is that in terms of club events, with only 3 courts available, we more often than not have twice the number or 3 times the number of people wishing to participate at these events, which is proving to be a struggle. So it's timely in our view that they've been reinvested back into the facilities for the last 18 months, that we seek options in terms of being able to establish additional tennis courts within the area. So with that in mind, we've done some initial costings. We've obviously got both the upgrade of our existing courts, lights, as well as the establishment of new courts that factored into those. And it's really, as I say, we see this as a community project, bearing in mind that we're obviously on council land. And we see the need, obviously, if we want to sincerely develop the code and the sports that we are involved with, which is both tennis and squash, that this is the necessary step. Having said that, we recognise that this is a large level of investment and is going to require, as I say, support of both the community and the council in my view for it to happen. So I've got detailed here just some background, one page in terms of the costings, and obviously I'm happy to circulate that as well as cover any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions? So you're aware that we're coming into the long-term plan process?
Yes, and I've read the recent report that's come out regarding the sporting side of things, and it's clear that, and I'm pleased to see that in many respects our club is meeting, I think, the requirements of what you're looking for in terms of multi-sport, multi-capable facilities that handles that. So already we believe we meet a criteria that meets the future need. It's just now, as I say, we've established a very good participation level, and we believe our sports can grow given the right facilities to do so.
Okay. Well, thank you for this. If there's no question, it's something we can take away and review and bear in mind as we go forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up we have Daniel Bones from Pottery Residents and Ratepayers.
Hi there.
Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thank you for asking us to speak.
Okay, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Jennifer has, I've just put a couple of slides here because we're going to talk about some signage at the Pottery Beach Reserve and Wildlife Refuge. And I thought we could just add some pictures so we can see roughly what we're talking about. Because we've got a consistent problem of people simply not understanding that it's a vulnerable wildlife refuge, and we've got a lot of signage. So there's a gap between the volume of signage and detail and what people are actually taking on board. So I just want to talk to that a little bit. My job, my day job, I'm in advertising and marketing, so I'm into mass communication. So I'll just sort of look at it through that lens, if you like, what I would say if you were a client or something. Okay. So, yes, so I'm Daniel Barnes. I'm from the Pottery Ratepayers and Residents Association, ORA, which has been going since 1961. I've only been here for 6 months myself, so my wife was chair before me, and Victoria is just behind me, and so I do know a little bit about this, despite being a relatively recent addition. So that is the signage situation there, and as you can see, there's quite a few signs. There's another one also off to the right there that's not in that shot. And if you click on the next thing there, Jennifer, this is what happens when you've got lots of signage but it doesn't really communicate. And what it is you just imagine yourself, you've just arrived, you're putting your kids' shoes on, you've got all these other things, the dog's running off and doing whatever else. You simply don't absorb all the information that's there, right? So that's what happens when you get a lot of information, but none of it sinks in, right? So just keep clicking on that. Yeah, so basically, you've got to say how much visitor information can a visitor absorb.
Not a lot of that.
And what happens is, there's some important stuff there, but you can't see it because there's all this other clutter, right? So you just walk straight past it. It's natural human. All right, so if you just keep going. So basically it's come down to your brain, right? So when we design signs, you just keep clicking through there. There's 3 bits to the brain. Basically, we use our smart brain, the top bit, when we design the signs. You just click on the Jennifer. We use that bit there to design the signs. We think it through. We work out what the criteria are and the size they have to be and all this sort of stuff. But when people visit, what they see, the way they act and behave is with the kind of emotional part of their brain, right? So they absorb information people make choices. We design the signs at the top bit, the smart bit, but people make choices with the emotional bit, right? So quite straightforward. So the messages that work here just basically have to be three. They have to be distinctive, right? They have to be very simple, and they have to be consistent. So those are the three things. Get those things right, then you kind of get effective behaviour. But that's not what we've really got there. So essentially, it's why this style of signage, while there's a lot of information, doesn't actually change the way people act. So. And if you look at this bit here, so even before you get to the beach itself, there's nothing there. If you click on the next one, Jim, thank you. There's little indication, even if you're going past the key traffic point on the corner, that there's actually an important wildlife refuge just down the road. In fact, it's very difficult to know what you pick up out of that. So, coming back to this, keep going to just the most effective time to inform visitors about this wildlife refuge, if you really think about it, is before they even get there, right? That is local information sources, local education, and landmark signage. So even before we get to the signs, let's talk about just people, so people just know. And look, I've worked my wife and I have stood for many hours at the Dotterel signage place right along the spit there and explained to all these people, a lot of whom, from the region and know the beach, and I go, oh, really? There's breeding ground, and there's quite a lot, so if we start with that premise, right, that we're just going to tell people for the long term, that way we're not relying on signs to do all the work when they show up. So we can talk further about that. So we kind of create if you keep going on, what you call as a zone of awareness. So that people just know that there's an important wildlife refuge before they even arrive, right? So keep the message simple and emotional rather than complex and detailed. So it's more like this sort of thing. Just have something saying, can you help protect this little baby? So even kids will go, oh, Mum, don't leave the dogs out here. We've got to protect babies, right? So just do very simple emotional signage, not complex, not highly informational, all that sort of stuff will work a lot better. I think we're just about over now, so rather than that kind of thing, right? So if we just move on a bit there, that's great. So signage then becomes sort of a backstop to catch people who don't already know, rather than trying to tell the whole story over a complicated series of spaces where people are busy doing other things. Great, so thank you very much for the time. I mean, you just click on there. I'd just like to say that we would love to work with you to help this important wildlife refuge thrive in any way we can as part of the Aurora Association. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. Just probably go to questions.
Sorry,
yeah, Daniel, very good presentation. Thank you. So some of the issues we have, we've got several organisations, regional council, DOC, us, all trying to do our own thing.
Exactly.
So if you can think of a way of putting this all together and make a sign that's very clear.
I think that's a very important point, because what you've got there is, if you look at who's on each sign, there's the DOC, right? There's you guys, there's other people just randomly also stuck up signs saying, watch out for theft in the car, and so there's all sorts of, as well as official things, there's unofficial signage that just grows as well. So we can find a way to coordinate everything. So we think about it not so much what everyone individually is trying to achieve, as to what are you trying to tell the person that is walking in the car park, while they're trying to find their kids' shoes, and keep the dog in check and all that sort of stuff. So that's so we can help you in any way we can.
So, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this is a problem right around the district.
Of course.
And so is this a twofold approach where you'd like to see the signage improved from a collective perspective, but also from an individual perspective in terms of the wildlife sanctuary area?
Well, this is the topic of discussion, is the way I'd like to sort of think about it. We don't have a fixed point of view, but I think if you think about it, what is the one thing you'd like people to know when they arrive that stops a whole bunch of problems? So that my wife and I, all volunteers from Aurora, don't have to be constantly fending people with dogs and all this stuff, even right up to the margin of the birdlife sanctuary right when they're breeding. So if we can just get that information out there so people already know and respect it. I mean, you always get people that, you know, just don't want to pay. That's fine, but just we want just as few as possible, right? So and less people just, you know, wandering up out of it, you know, well-meaning people who just don't know. So those sorts of, if we can help filter all them out, it just really creates a huge, saves a huge amount of trouble. And we're happy to help coordinate. I understand there'll be different people and different entities, you know, from like our regional council to you guys to DOC to everyone else. If we can just work together to find the simplest and most effective way of doing this, you know, we're happy to help in any way we can. Just bring them together.
Can I just add something here? So currently there is an advertising signage person in Thames that's, so I won't give them free publicity, but they're currently working on a uniformity around the council signage, and we do work in with DOC as well. So this is a strengthened partnership that we've had, and so I'm sure that we could actually see what we could probably come up with that's a lot better, and I don't see any reason why the other advertisers, like the Hui Lodge, couldn't also be part of that as well.
I'd like to think that, you know, we're all trying to achieve the same thing. And
We do need better signage regimes throughout the district.
And it's a complicated problem. And I wonder whether things like this, if you use this almost like a prototype, where you do a bit of testing and learning of new approaches in one spot, say, it's less expensive than trying to try one thing and scaling it and find it doesn't work, right? If you get something that, you know, we experiment around this area with a specific problem, see if we get a good result, and then if we learn from that, we can take that model and then copy it. Right? So that'd be the approach I'm recommending. You know, let's work to coordinate everyone together and get the different interested parties, come up with a solution. If it works there, it'll probably work in most places. So.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much for the presentation. Next, we have Darren Harper from the Golf Club. Welcome, Darren.
Good morning, everyone. Right, I'm the General Manager of the Whangamata Golf Club. We're here to talk a little bit about some of the projects and things that we have on at the moment, just to give you a general idea of the depth and breadth of the club. We have around about 650 permanent members of the club. About 250 of those are from out of town. The club puts around about 26 to 30,000 rounds of golf through every year. So we very much like a tourist destination. We have a lot of visitors and a lot of tourists that come through, a lot of international visitors that come through our play, of course. But golf clubs around the country are facing a bit of a survival issue at the moment with an inability to raise membership fees to cover the cost of running the course, such as fertilisers and herbicides and wages and those sorts of things. So we're forever now looking at ways in which we can supplement the revenue through grants and subsidies and other things that we can do. So just to give you a bit of an idea of what we're looking at, over the next 3 years of the strategic plan we put together, we've got about $460,000 worth of capital expense to spend on things to bring the club back up to where it needs to be. And that's, if we look at things like car parks, refurbishing of car parks, car park painting, the lines on the car parks. At the Williamson course, we're looking at clubhouse refurbishment. The toilet block there needs updating, the re-roofing and gutters need to be done. At the Titoki course, the clubhouse there has about $50,000 to $60,000 worth of work that needs doing on it. To bring it up to speed, that's re-roofing, guttering, boards, carpet, painting and tidying up. Tree felling is a major expense, both at the Williamson course, so that the clubhouse, the club leases the Williamson site for golf. We've got a number of trees on that course that are old, wind damaged. We recently had to take one down, and it cost the club about $1,000 just to fell that just one tree. There's about 150 trees at the Titoki course that need to be removed. For a whole bunch of reasons, aesthetics, a little bit of that, but mainly health and safety reasons. They're old, limbs fall, people will get into. We have also upgrades to irrigation, coarse irrigation, and consent applications that we go through for drawing down of water through the Waikato Regional Council. So overall, I guess what I'm trying to portray here is that we're a significant, I guess, amenity for the town. We have a very small membership base. So if you look at the major clubs around town, like the Whangamata Club and the Ocean Sports Club, who have literally thousands of members, we have 600, and we're trying to upkeep a multi-million-dollar facility through subscriptions that total around about $300,000, and the rest we get from green fees and any other income that we can get. So any support that we can get from council to help us keep the facilities up to speed and up to spec would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Darren. Any questions for Darren?
Could the fire brigade do the tree felling?
Yes, they could. We're not talking about some small trees here. We're talking about significant, 40, 50 metre high trees.
Just throwing it out there.
We've got the expertise to do it because we have several forestry workers in the brigade, but the only thing would be a conflict of interest with commercial people that would have to be discussed.
No, not firewood.
Yeah. But we have got the expertise here to do it.
There's no further questions. Thank you very much, Darren. Thank you. What do you say? Okay, Peter Burgess and Nick Penny.
Good morning, and thank you for the invitation.
Darren, just press the button to the left and wait for 5 seconds.
Yeah, I still have to say, trap the President Nick Penny is sitting behind me. Thank you for the invitation. Whangamata Bowling Club is just about to embark on a very exciting project of putting in a carpet green, changing our number one turf green into a carpet green. That's basically costing the club $300,000. We hope to have that finished by Christmas this year. Most of the money's been raised through members and the kind support of the local businesses, etc. Our projects for the next 5 to 10 years is pretty well set out in our strategic plan, which I've sent a copy of to Jennifer, and I'm sure she'll pass that on to you. The project, once we complete the carpet green, is the next project to be completed in 2022, is the complete repaint of buildings, fences and seating, and this is estimated to cost about $40,000. Moving on, our 2023-2024, we plan to replace our number 2 turf green with a carpet green. Again, this is going to cost around $300,000. Moving forward to 25-27, we hope to provide a cover over our number 1 green with the exorbitant cost of $1 million. So, giving you some idea, our club community at the moment we're a growing club. We've had something like 20 new members in the past 6 months. We've got 150 active members playing. That doesn't include members of the public that come along to our crackerjack competition, where we have 1 bowler playing with 2 non-bowlers, and that's a big event every year. So we get over another 60 people playing in that. Holiday period, as you all know, we're a tourist town. We get hundreds of visitors come and use our greens, make very little contribution to the local economy or the local green club, bowling club, but it's a good facility for the community. Our overall plan is to become the centre of bowls on the eastern seaboard, and that covers places like Tairua, Pawanui, Waihi Beach and Pyro. It's a big catchment area, And in that catchment area, it would be the only club with an all-weather turf carpet green, which we can play 12 months of the year on. So that's our sort of projects. We're a growing club. We look forward to any support council can give us. I'll reiterate one of the previous speakers, it is on council land, and any development that we do becomes a council asset. So we look forward to some support in the future.
Thank you, Peter. Any questions for Peter? No, thank you very much. A very clear presentation. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Murray Cleland, you're up next. Welcome, Murray.
Thank you for the invitation. I come as the president of the Whangamata Rugby and Sports Club. So just to give you an overview of what the club has done in the last 12 months, we have upgraded the toilets in the rugby club there, which cost us 120,000. I think if the health department had gone in there, they would have shut the club down. So we had to do something pretty quickly. So it's been 120,000 in upgrading the toilets, and we owe only 15,000 now. So we've managed to plough a fair proportion of that away through membership, sponsorship, and good supporters of the rugby club. When you talk about the rugby club, it's rugby club and sports. It's just not a rugby club. We cater for cricket, soccer, and netball. And I'll talk about the netball in a moment. So we're catering for the youth of this town. If you were there on Saturday at 10 o'clock, right through till 5 o'clock, you would have seen a huge crowd at that ground, and started off with a junior rugby right through to senior rugby. It's probably the biggest event this town's had for a long, long time on the sports side of it. So the club does need upgrading, the kitchen and the bar. Believe it or not, the floor in the rugby club is actually rotten, so we're going to have to attend to that. So whether council can help us there or not, I don't know. But we're going to have to do something there in the coming 2021. As far as what I'd like to see the council do, I'd like to see the grounds maintained better. I think that those grounds need to be looked at. I think a heavy roller across those grounds at some time during the year would actually be better playing surface for all the cricket and rugby, as well as soccer. So we've encouraged all the other groups to come to the rugby club ground and use it. We also now cater for the school. We've encouraged the school to come there and play their games there. So we tried to make it a community type thing. So it's the grounds. The other thing that we want to do is remove the storage sheds at one side of the ground. I think council actually approved for us to do this. We want help to move the storage sheds up in behind the netball courts. We have a lot of equipment that we have to hold for a game, believe it or not, and we'd like assistance to help us shift that. Moving on to the netball courts, as a resident of this town, I'm amazed that there are no toilets at the netball courts. Now, as you know, there's a woman in the room here. Women need toilets probably more than men. You've now got a situation where you're allowing motorhomes to park there. There's one single tap. You're allowing motorhomes to park there and use that facility there. But I really feel sorry for the netball girls who have no toilet facilities whatsoever. If they wish to use toilet facilities, they have to get a key off the rugby club, they have to walk across the rugby club, or they have to walk right across the ground to the far side by the skateboard park. That's the closest toilet facility for those girls, and I think it's a disgrace. I think it should have been fixed a long time ago. So that's us. We'd like council support, but we'll just carry on doing what we've got to do, and as I say, it's just not people look at it as a rugby club. It's just not a rugby club. It's actually a sporting club for this town. So thank you.
Thank you, Murray. Any questions, Murray?
What was the tally?
Sorry?
What was the tally?
The tally for what?
Total.
Well, we spent 120,000 on the flashless toilets in this town. And I'd say it'd be another 120,000 to do what we've got to do. So we're 50,000 on the way already, but it'd be nice to see that council can come.
So that would complete your list, that's what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
No further questions. Thank you very much, Murray.
And I would have loved to have a crack about Beverly Terrace, but I'll leave it alone.
That's what I thought you were here for, actually. I think Pat might have beat you to it there, Murray.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Lynette Franklin. Welcome, Lynette.
Hi. Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I'm just here to speak about an application that we've put in. So, for the grant, we're a new group that's been formed, and we're about 5 weeks young. And we call ourselves Wellness of Whanga. The group has kind of originated from all the depression and suicides that we have in town. Sorry.
All right.
But, so the reason why we formed this is to help support families who have a loved one that's going through depression and suicide. But also for the people who are in that place, who are in depression, who are having suicidal thoughts. Our group has expanded quite a lot in the 5 weeks that we've just sort of put it together. We've already had 3 people reach out, 1 who is struggling, 1 and 2 who are in depression and suicidal. And they have reached out, and they're just so grateful that there's people in town that are close and that they know they can call on any time they need. And that's what it's about. Because a lot of times we hear so many stories of people reaching out of town and nobody gets back to them. And, you know, we've heard of horrific stories. So this is about local supporting locals, and for us to do that, we have we'd like to create a drop-in centre. We've been talking with a visitor from the Anglican Church, and it's Cornerstone House, which is a really nice place because it's central in town for everybody. And they have Tuesday mornings and Friday afternoons, which are vacant for us to be there and to be for people just to drop in and have a chat and have a cup of tea and just to, and like the people that have run already, they just say that it's just so, it gives them strength knowing that there's somebody just there, somebody who cares. People don't have that. So yeah, that's basically what we're about. But of course it costs to have that. We have decided, we had a meeting last night, we've decided to become what's it called? Well, we're just going to be a group, non-profit group.
Incorporated society.
Decided to become, incorporated society. So that we can try and get, funding for different things. To advertise what we're doing, although the word seems to be getting out there anyway, but to advertise and to let everybody know in Whangamata what we're doing. We're going to be creating an event in the Whangamata hall, Memorial Hall, and we're going to have speakers, and we're going to have we'd like to offer, free sausage sizzle and refreshments and stuff like that, so that, people, even if they just come for the food, they end up going to something else, or maybe listening to somebody or talking to somebody, so. And yes, so that's, we would like to do that on the 27th of September, which is the last day of Mental Health Week.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Any questions?
Yeah, hi. It's very important thing you're trying to put together. How many in the group at the moment, sort of, in your side of it, organising this? Is it still a small group?
So we have 7 in the core.
Right.
And then we have there's 25 supporting us on the Messenger page. And then we've just started up a page. One is the Facebook page, not Messenger page, but page. And I think there's about 60 people that have come onto that.
Right, so is it on Facebook? Is it run through
At the
Facebook?
moment.
Right. And when they want to call in, can they call in or are they going to go to Facebook through there?
No, they can call.
They can call as well.
Yeah, we have numbers on, phone numbers on there. Yeah.
Did you consider combining with community board, the
Trust.
community trust?
So they support us 100%. And so, yeah, they actually, because they only get allocated so much time or free time to give people counselling and stuff like that. So now they're actually, when they're finished with someone that, there's no more funded, then they actually directing them to us.
So you're sort of a backup after they finish the counselling with the community trust.
Correct. As well as.
So you were quite heavily involved in the Hope Walk last year. Are you planning on combining this with that, or like it's quite a similar format? Is there an opportunity to work with them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Have you applied for funding from other organisations who give grants in the community?
The youth group, we haven't applied, but the youth group has said that they would like to give us $100. The guy from our local petrol station, he wants to help in some way, by helping us maybe, about the teas and coffees and stuff like that for when we have the drop-in days, drop-in times. Because we're only just only 5 weeks, so we haven't sort of really, you guys were our first call because somebody said, oh, they're doing a grant. Get in here.
I think once you form an incorporated society and look at it, there are a lot of avenues you should be able to seek some assistance with. So then the track was, great stuff you're doing, but there is a cost of doing it. So
yes, that's right. And somebody even just let us know that the Te Korowai over in Thames, they help with funding as well, apparently. So we're going to look into that as well.
Again, you need to be incorporated.
Exactly. Yeah.
Any further questions?
We've got that in the motion.
Well, thank you very much for coming in. We've read what you're saying and wish your group well. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Is that the end of the public forum? No further speakers? If not, would someone like to move we receive the speakers? Moved by Kay, seconded by Tamsin. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. So items not on the agenda, 1.4, any items not on the agenda? And there are no items. 1.5, conflict of interest. Any conflicts of interest?
I do on the grants.
Okay, note that Kay Baker has a conflict for the grant side, which is 2.4. Thank you. And now move for minutes for confirmation, and they've been circulated. So,
Happy to move that way.
Moved by Terry, seconded by Kay. Any discussion? If I'll put it. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Moving to 2.1, request for streets to be a poppy place. So we have the report there. So someone like to move it to put it?
I'll move that.
Poppy, please.
And moved by Tamsin, seconded by Terry. And any discussion? Just one question, Eileen. If we went with all the streets that are suggested there, signs at each end, the blades at each end, is there enough money for that?
Yeah, depending on the cost of the signs, which we don't quite know yet, because some of those streets have actually got crossroads in between them. So then it'd be dependent on whether you want just one at one end and one at the other. But your natural cultural heritage grant is only 6,000, so you'll only be able to get enough signs up to that.
To spend up to that level and then, yeah. Okay.
There's no way you could just have a copy made and stuck on the pole with the street, because that makes a bit of money. I don't know, I just was trying to.
Well, these are then registered through the Poppy Places Trust. These are actually registered on the Poppy Places Trust throughout New Zealand.
Throughout New Zealand, I think is centre structure, I think. So how far short are we, sorry, I forgot? How far short of funding?
Well, you've only got $6,000 in your natural cultural heritage grant.
And how much do you think it will cost?
Well, the signs themselves are between $400 and $800, so depending on some of those streets have got crossroads in between, so some of those streets may actually have 3 signs, but you'll only be able to do what you can do, and at this stage, 1 at each end will be enough.
Through this chair, what has the Natural and Cultural Heritage Fund been used for in the past few years?
So this community board hasn't used it in the past.
Right.
So it's a grant that each community board has, and it's done on a percentage of your ratepayer base. Right. So each community board has a different amount. In the past, nobody's actually applied to the Natural Cultural Heritage Grant because nobody's had a project. In Taira, they use their grant of $4,000 for their history panels.
Yeah. Right, and it's yearly.
Yeah.
I just wonder why you would pay just to decorate some streets with poppies and celebrate or acknowledge or pay tribute to the RSA through doing whatever you want to with poppies in any street. Why would you pay an entity for some signs when you could organise the men's shed to do something like that, you know? I just think there's far broader opportunities to celebrate culture and heritage than this particular one, when our communities are so supportive of RSA and Poppy Day that they do extraordinary things.
I think through the chair, this one here though, Your Worship, has been a national direction, and they've also done the history behind them all. They're recording, the actual street's name, what it means and things like that. So it's not just a sign on a post. It's actually got some history behind it, and they've picked the streets that are locked in for the RSA. They've named them, haven't they?
Yeah, so Whitianga have already done 2 poppy places up there. They've done Alfred Simpson Drive as well as the Soldiers Memorial Park.
So I think it's got some value to it.
I just think that if there's 6,000 something there and they're prepared to give it to us for the signage, then we just use that instead of why don't we get it costed first to see how many we can do, use whatever, and then so that it doesn't actually cost the ratepayers.
Well, it will cost the ratepayers, so it's right.
No, but I mean, it's already sitting there. I mean, it's from the National Heritage people. So why don't we just do a few streets and see what happens?
Is it possible to get them further information so I understand the whole cost of doing it, but also get a better idea of what other areas are doing with that fund? Like, it would be good to understand what the possibilities are for our cultural heritage of Whangamata.
Because they have to be double-sided as well.
Yes, so
that would be built into the projection.
Yeah, so I mean, at the moment you've got 7 signs at 1 at each end would be $800, so 7 8's 56, so that's 5,600. Yeah, which is short of your 6. But like I say, if the streets have got crossroads, you may want to put another one in, or just leave it at 1 at each end.
So through the chair, could we just approach the RSA and say, we've got $6,000 to contribute to this program for a sign at each end. If they want to do the other ones, maybe they can look at the funding option? Or are you looking to?
We could approach it, but The other option is just to do a sign as one end as much as you can, and once the money's gone.
Just use the money that's there.
Yeah.
Maybe, later date.
And if the RSA want to contribute something to do further sign, they certainly could be invited to do that.
If you look at the heritage being around the Coromandel, we've used nothing really, have we? So, money's spent quick.
Is that the just lack of visibility that is even available?
I think Mercury Bay, they use theirs for different grants as well.
Tara use theirs for teams use theirs.
Yeah.
It would be great for it to be more based on the history of Whangamata rather than just.
Well, it's something we can look at for the future, because the Tairua heritage signs are brilliant when you walk around there. You've got the history of what's happened in the past there. But it's obviously the money's not going to cover the whole thing. My preference is that we go with this, spend up to the amount available, and then in future years we can look at or see if there's other heritage projects we can look at.
I agree.
Yeah.
We will be getting more money back into the heritage fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. It will be replenished. So we have a resolution there. It's been moved and seconded. So all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. So we now move to 2.2, the Community Board Work Programme, and it's very early in the year, so at this stage the financials aren't reflected in the report. So we have with us Bruce. Welcome, Bruce.
Morning.
So we've had it circulated the report, so are there any questions, or do you want to add anything, Bruce?
No, so through the chair, as you mentioned, Ken, we're very early into the financial year, so a lot of money hasn't actually come through, been spent yet, so that's reflected in the actuals. I've got a number of updates that are here and some additional information if there's any questions, so I'm happy to, take any questions.
Questions, Terry?
Yeah, the Harbour renewals, the facility down at the wharf, the repairs, have they been completed?
Yes, they were done last Monday. Yes.
Did they have to put new beams in, or they just?
Oh, should have had testing material. I don't know that level of detail, sorry. Yeah, but I can find out and come back to you. Yeah.
Just some comments that were made that I follow up on.
What's the impact of the current beach access ways? What's the strategy for making them safe?
For around the erosion and stuff, so we're talking about. So we've got a coastal scientist who's only been with us for about a month or so, Jamie Boyle. So he's working his way around a number of hotspots, and we've definitely had quite a few incidents on the eastern seaboard over the last couple of months with erosion. So we've at the Taiwan Community Board yesterday, we had people coming and speaking about erosion in Palmanui. We've also got some issues at Buffalo Beach up in Mercury Bay. So he's working his way around, and he'll be working in with our parks team, with Lou Mackwell and Derek Thompson to address those issues. I don't know exactly what he would do though.
Right.
Bruce, have you seen Paul Shank's videos and his little commentaries?
I've seen videos in the past that Paul Shanks has done.
Well, there's some recent ones he's done, particularly about the erosion we've had.
Oh, I think I have seen some of those.
And what's quite interesting, some of them show how they put metal, I don't know what sort of it was in there, because he says it didn't used to be the dunes like this, they just built up over whatever date. But the background of what he says is certainly quite interesting.
Yeah.
Because he says it's quite dangerous if you're going to, kids can't jump because there's bits of metal and other things, so it's really.
Yeah, so that is an issue obviously all around the country where people try and do things, councils or private individuals to try and protect dunes, and put stuff down in the dunes, which often is, very rarely works. So if there's issues and there's safety issues down there, there's material on the beach, then I can get my team to look at that and address that.
And I think to speak to that, I remember why he was saying that railway lines all the way along in timber, and they rotted out and became sharp edges in the sand for them over. And when they rode it out, they became quite.
Yeah, I haven't listened to the things that all seem, but it does give a very good background. He talks of the history of it, and it's probably worth.
Through the chair, I think you'll find that the surf has had a lot to do with that.
Did they? Oh, well, I don't know.
Mr. Shanks included.
Well, maybe he's criticising himself.
He is
pretty good.
He is.
Well, we'll leave that out of it. Another question from me in terms of the CCTV cameras.
Yes.
And you see that there's been an agreement with Vodafone to use their tower, and it said it would be completed by the end of July.
it hasn't happened.
No, okay, yeah.
So sorry to tell you that, but yeah, the contractor's still trying to get that agreement with Vodafone, but as you're probably aware, that's not been forthcoming, and yeah, it's been quite.
So have they had verbal approval?
No, I don't think they've got any approval yet. So it's.
Well, this says that we've had approval.
Yeah,
It was Spark, we had problems.
It should be achieved by the end of July.
Yeah.
So it should be, and it wasn't. So they may have had some verbal, but we've got nothing in writing. I'm not aware of the detailed discussions, but they haven't got the approval they need, unfortunately, which they thought they'd have by the end of July. So the contract is still working with Vodafone to try and get that approval, but they are looking at possibly using a connection from the refuse transfer station instead. And so we've got our IT team looking into that for us as well as a fallback position. So
could we ask our worship the mayor if she can use some influence?
we can always try and get the influence of the worship the mayor.
Want me to? Yeah, do you want me to?
Yeah, we can do. I'll get the details. I'll get the details from the project.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it has been a couple of years that it's been dragging on, trying to.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, you should have told me sooner.
Welcome to
We're waiting for you to come, your worship.
I'm not library,
Through the chair, can I just raise a point that's been raised by a few people? The work that was done on Williamson Park, the drainage problems, those apartments at the front that we're having the flooding with the car park. That, as we see it now, is that completed?
I believe so, yes.
Because there is Rennie McElwain from the Whangamata Summer Festival Committee is a bit concerned that the way it's been put back is not suitable.
Right.
Okay. I can give you a copy.
Yeah, if you've got any details, I can definitely grab
give you a copy of this, but it's one of those things that Williamson Park is a jewel in Whangamata, and we've really got to make it look nice.
Yep.
And it's one of those things that I see I looked at that when they dug out and they found that access way across Ocean Road. Yeah. But it's still a little bit of a task, and it would be nice to tie everything together. I'm just concerned of seeing people with prams or walkers and even with electric wheelchairs. They can't get up. If they try to do that, and it's just some way you can think about how it can be made better.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I understood that was not a pedestrian crossing, they've got another name for it.
It's a pedestrian refuge.
Refuge,
that's where the cars have right of way and the pedestrians don't. So it's not a zebra crossing, so you can't just step out and expect the cars to stop. But I hear what Gary's saying, because it's got a ramp up that was covered in sand and it had a very steep angle. We didn't even, we didn't even know or forgotten there was an actual proper crossing there. They went and cleared it or dug it all out. It's actually got a reasonable crossing, but it leads straight to the reserve. It doesn't lead to another path or anything. So I think Gary's referring to, whether we, okay, thank you. Whether we look at that, which I talked about as part of the LTP, it might be something the board looks at, around different connections within the reserve.
Tamsin, you're next.
Can we please get an update on the boardwalk?
The boardwalk, yes. Yes, so the hui happened last week, and that was very positive. The feedback I've had is it was very positive. Iwi were obviously involved, and they've got a number of other signs that they'd like to be involved in around the district or around the area. So yes, I think we're moving forward in that regard.
What happened to the trial section?
Trial section, that's still moving ahead, yeah.
It's great. It's very good.
Yeah.
Well, there is that 10 metre bit that goes down.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
Yeah.
Even through the storms, it actually held up.
Except I think it's quite a distance back from where the water was coming.
Yeah, but the water was coming right over there in the morning.
Was it?
Yeah, we had to go out onto the path, we couldn't get on the beach. It was came right up over the walkway.
Oh, well, it still looks good.
And when will we receive the revised budget?
So that should be coming probably the next meeting, I'd say, yeah.
Your worship?
Can I just, I'd like to point out that for the boardwalk, when you were involved with iwi, there's somewhere you could use your Culture and Heritage Fund. Just saying, yeah.
So they're definitely looking at some subtle kind of iwi design elements into the boardwalk and around interpretive signs and stuff. So yeah, it was a positive meeting by the sounds of it.
Terry?
Yeah, let's go back to Wentworth Valley Road. September's coming up soon. Is it still planned to
yes,
restart?
Yeah, so September, October they'll be back into it. There have been a number of issues on site as we've traversed during other meetings and emails. And so, yes, so we've kind of upped our what's been required with the contractor to make sure they're managing things on site in the appropriate way.
And is Corey taking the lead there?
So I've actually got Steve Bremner, the project manager, project managers on that now. So Corey's doing a lot of work, Corey's got lots of other things on, so I've actually asked Steve Bremner to get involved. So he's met with a couple of the residents out on site,
right,
working through some of those issues. And it's unfortunate that the way the project kind of kicked off, and that some of the decisions and some of the things that were done on site by the contractor, you know, and their staff that may have thought they were doing the right thing, but weren't doing the right thing, didn't communicate as well as they could have. You know, it's easy in hindsight to actually look back and say that, you know, they could have done things better. But yeah, so we're trying to move forward and learn from that, and Steve Bremner is a good man to have on the job.
Isn't it why we're putting it out 2 years?
Okay, you're.
Can I ask what's happening with the platform was taken on?
So the platform's been installed, yeah.
Yes, I know. So what is happening now, because I've had quite a few inquiries, when is it going back?
Well, the platform's just sitting at the moment, it's not doing anything.
So what are you doing about it?
Well, that's a discussion that we need to have with the board. So there was no decision made, you know, if you recall, when I came to the board and talked about it and said we need to get that platform out. What I did say was that then it would need to be subject to a future decision by the board if they want to move.
But we did say that we would like to have further discussion on it.
Yes, yeah, I can get a team to bring it up.
But we want to know, I want to know what the projection is for if we have to get dock or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the detail that I'll need to get the team to put a report together, and they'll need to cover off.
Because that is what was supposed to happen before it actually was put there.
Yeah, yes, no, definitely. So they'll need to cover off all the different processes that need to be followed and the costs of doing those. And possibly look at, you know, is that the location, if you are, if the board is keen to put it back in, is that the best location? Is there a different location to maybe just?
Perfect location.
So we need to, yeah, so we need to do a report, bring that back to the board to consider, and then move forward and look at budget about where we're going to pay for it from.
And also whether it can be reused, because it will have that building consent, won't it, and that platform?
No, it doesn't need building consent.
I thought it was
it's only the dockland.
No, and the other thing is there's been changes to the building consent
right,
that are coming through this month.
Yeah.
Around that stuff. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, no, if we have a future report or come to a workshop with that, then something we would like to.
I just don't want it to get put in a shed and forgotten about.
No, it's not in a shed, but
no,
or wherever it is.
I don't think we've got sheds for those.
I'm not going to tell you where it is though. So
no,
I want you to see back on the bridge.
I can get the bulldozer on it.
Are there any more questions of the work programme? If not, would someone like to move?
Let me just close down this, so I'm sharing my screen and all.
Thames has moved.
Thames has moved it, seconded by Dave. All those in favour?
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Does it come up with anything on there?
No, there's nothing under here for Island View, but I'm happy to.
I'm just wondering what is happening, because I have seen all the scrub and grass is gone.
Yes.
And now I want to know, is it going to be level?
Yeah, it's going to be levelled.
I believe so, yes. I had a brief catch up with Derek Thompson about it probably 2 weeks ago now, and he said that they're moving forwards with that. They've done, they were doing the clearing, getting that done.
It's going to be cold.
Yeah, so I think there was some, there's definitely some discussion about how they kind of manage that side, about whether they level it off or what's appropriate for that. But obviously we talked about whether that other car park, that high level car park, will be better placed for camper vans and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So I'll make sure I get an update.
Yeah, because it can't say that it needs to be level. It's actually quite a big difference.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so we've had mover and seconder. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. So moving on to item 2.3, the community plan, and we've had feedback that has been circulated to the board for consideration. I've taken the liberty of suggesting 3 further recommendations which are highlighted in green, and I'll move those in bulk. If anyone would like to second that, seconded by Kay, but I'll open it up for discussion or further amendments. Terry?
Yeah, well, I just think they've done a lot better job of this. They've obviously listened to us, and it looks far more comprehensive. There might be a few more additions we're here today, but it's certainly becoming more of a community plan than it was before, so well done.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at your greens. I can live with two. The first one, boardwork stage one, but I think we're just going to inflame the situation by putting stage 2 up there. It's really, the anger out there is just extraordinary.
The second one is saying that nothing will happen without further consultation, and because there's no funding at the moment for anything further, so.
It's going to inflame. You just looked at some of those comments in the response, there's a lot there. But the people who, honestly, that's about the one thing I can contact them about. And I have asked for recess for all permanents and absentees.
Yeah, and I hear other feedback too, so we must have different contacts.
Well, I'm getting the same thing, but not quite the anger against it. I want anger for it. So we've got two sides here. There's people who want it and people who don't.
And that's why I'm suggesting that, is because we do need to have further consultation. We can't make a decision today. And that's highlighting the fact.
It's more than you talk of consultation and funding, but we need approvals.
Well, that flows from the LTP. So it'll have to be considered as a future, and a future LTP says no, then nothing happens. What I'm saying is have that in there to just reflect to the community that there's no decision to go beyond Esplanade Drive at this stage. There's no funding to go beyond Esplanade Drive. It needs to be taken up in a future process. If the future process says no, nothing happens. If the future process says yes, then something will happen. But it's just to highlight that is a future debate.
Would you want to include board approval so that the vast majority of public, if they don't understand the terminology, they don't understand the connection with LTP, maybe
okay, you put the word approval in there.
Just wondering, subject to future approval?
No, after funding approval.
And just with the all-weather cover for the skate park, do we know that that's something that attendees?
An all-weather cover for the skate park? Is it something they're wanting? It's something that came out of discussions. Yeah.
Because it was my understanding that it's detrimental to skating.
Detrimental to skating?
Because it doesn't dry fast enough.
I don't think they're wanting the whole skate park.
Right.
No, they're looking for a shelter area.
There's a bit of a shelter area.
So that came out of the feedback.
Yeah.
Rather than cover, change that word to shelter.
Not to cover the whole skate.
Yeah.
Or with a shelter.
You know, where they all come up in
shading.
Shelter,
and then along further, they were putting some shade covers so they could sit on the rugby and most of the thing.
Because it's not the whole park, it's just where the kids go.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're happy with that amendment?
Yes, I would have.
Should be, can I just suggest what areas of the skate park? It was.
No, it's just where it is at the end.
Yeah, but isn't, you're saying skate park per se? So
No, it's certain spots on.
Yeah, but that needs to be worked through because we're detailed, yeah.
To be at the skate park, maybe, because it does sound like it's.
At the skate park, yeah, okay, rather than for.
You want to put finish?
No, at the skate park.
Okay.
Can I go back just one step one before? It is subject to LTP consultation, funding and consent approval, because consents are going to be the big thing.
Okay, I'm happy with that amendment.
I didn't hear that, I was cooking.
Funding, the previous one, funding and consent approval.
So the LTP funding, you need to take the other end out.
Yeah.
What about the security cameras for the skate park? And that's a priority as well.
It didn't come through this process, so we can't just add it in. We bring it up through the long-term plan, but we can't just bring it in at this stage as part of the community plan.
But you're right, though, that's part of it there.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got with those amendments. I'll put that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. So we now move on to item 2.4.
Oh, sorry, before you do, the Unimana one, I want to speak to the Unimana.
Okay. Right, now we'll give you some leeway there, we'll move back. Okay.
Unimana, I had the meeting with them on Saturday morning for the community ratepayers, and they said that the suggestions that were on the plan here, or the projects, were out of date. And as far as the culvert, deep stream channel, etc., the piping and replacing of the footbridge at the bottom of the car park, they say that it's not really a priority, and their concern is more about bubbling of water the way it's there. So I've spoken, and they're talking about getting an engineer to go and have a talk to them about that so that they can discuss that. But also the safe cycle walking track from State Highway 25 to the village, they would like that to be to remain in there, but not necessarily to go directly to 25. They were wondering whether it could actually go back through the forest and cut back through the forest rather than go down the main road where traffic's coming through, so they can get it. They don't see any point of having the electric barbecues in their area near the tennis courts at this stage, and they suggested that they could be removed. And that also the community hub that's mentioned in here, they support the surf club and say that they would like to join with the surf club to have that. Trees, they say that some trees have been planted without any consultation, and they would like, if any more trees are going into the reserve, that they be consulted on them. And also freedom camping is a big concern. They say that the amount of freedom camping that's going on there, it's spreading out even from the area where the new toilets and that are out onto the footpath area, and that with tents and that, because it's so full at times when it gets busy. They'd also asked that bollards replace the ropes on the north end of the reserve, and also by the toilets, that they remove the rope markings and put actual bollards in there.
Well, thanks, Dave. That sounds more like a long-term plan submission than put into the community plan. The community plan was developed, and actually a number of the things were taken out of their 2017 plan, such as the culvert, so it's not that ancient. They didn't make a submission into this of providing feedback, so I'd be reluctant to change at this stage, but certainly when we get into the long-term plan, we can take those things into consideration. So, yeah.
Can I just ask, Dave, we are going to be doing a review of the freedom camping bylaw this year.
I saw that.
So if you can get communities all to think about where else they could be, but not on our beach fronts.
Yeah. I asked them if they had an alternative, and they didn't have an alternative that they could put up at this stage.
Well, they don't have to have them there at all in Whangamata. There's no prerequisite for that. So are they happy for them not to be there?
I didn't ask that. These ladies might be able to answer. They are members of it. So that's something. So
I use colloquialism of find a back paddock somewhere. I don't actually mean necessarily a back paddock. So for example, Thames has got Dandyfield car park and Rose car park, both have toilets and plenty of space. So we can then take away some of the beachfront access, which has been distressing for local communities, for locals actually.
No, we've got the same issue with Island View.
Yeah, sure.
Too.
Yeah, sure.
But it's only the people who live there, and that's only 2 permanents in that whole road.
No, I'm talking about the freedom camping taking the prime spots the locals want to use. Well, thanks for that, Dave, but it's certainly something we should take on board for the long-term plan.
I'll mention it to them anyway. Thank you for that.
Okay. So we've had a movement and second. All those in favour? Right. Against? Carried. Right, we're moving on to the community grants, and thank you very much for your input into the sort of informal consideration to date, which I've circulated and we have there. And you'll see that this opening suggestion totals 29,500. So today we can either amend what we've suggested there. We've got to add some more in, or you can take them out. So it's really open for discussion, but that's as a starting point, 29.5, so that another 7,500 can be added. And some of what we've got there, as I say, can be amended up or down. So it's open to the board how they want to suggest we move forward.
We have to remind about the conflict. Then.
Oh, sorry, Kay, you might need to just remove yourself from the discussion.
Just in relation to the Whangamata ones, there's nothing that's been put down there at this stage, and I would like to see that some of those suggestions be covered, the insurance policies and maybe the sound system and the defibrillator insurance, which would be 4,000 roughly.
I think the issue was the lack of financials provided, wasn't it?
Sorry?
There were no financials provided with the
No, but as pointed out, we can still give money, although I understood the financials were sent through on the weekend, but I can't support that. But
Well, I'd certainly support 21 and 23, which are showing as a median, which indicates that more than one board member supports those. The other two only had one person.
The 22 is that's low, isn't it?
That's low, yeah.
So 21 is the public liability insurance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 23 is the
defibrillator insurance.
Defibrillator. And I think we've funded the public liability one previously, from memory.
And as discussed in my email, I would like to see consideration for the Whangamata Multi-Sports Club funding the full amount of their request. After going out there and seeing the level of maintenance required, there's a huge job in front of them, as well as the Whangamata board riders, I think, for the fee and then the work that they do. And it'll be nice to have a bit more funding going towards youth activities.
So you want to fund, so you want to fund the whole $1,800 for the Whangamata and the $209 for the defib one?
That's what Dave's suggesting. So perhaps put those in red.
Yep. And then we need to go back to your...
Not the sound system, take the sound system on that.
But that's it, yeah. And also, I don't think any of them are 100% yet. So.
Put that one in red.
Okay. And the full amount?
Yeah.
So that brings you up to 31,528.
And that one there. And so what are you suggesting for the multi-sport?
I would like to see them obtain the full amount that they've requested, given the amount of work that's actually required. I think that was a pretty light grant application.
That's number 18. How do others feel about that?
They cover a huge amount of area out there and have a large number of tracks, and a lot of them do need maintenance. All of the signage is pretty poor at the moment, but has a huge following, and we get a lot of out of domestic tourists visiting for that area.
Yeah, I support Thames in terms of those increasing those fundings. I didn't have quite that number, that's all.
No, just take that.
I thought $3,000 for the multi-sports and the surf one. Looked that to $2,000, but that's my feeling.
Yeah, I could live with 3 for the multi-sport. I don't think I've really at this stage. I'd love to be able to fund every application, but we had 100,000 of applications.
I just think when we look at the distribution of funds towards youth and younger activities versus more adult focused activities, there's not a lot that's representing youth. So it's only that, and then the board riders.
And the play centre you also mentioned.
I did, yes. But I feel like I might start losing my battles. I would even $500 towards play centre, I think, would be a gesture of support.
What's this one, sorry?
Number 25.
State certificates for parents.
Yeah, no, I have my head around this one. I can see what you're talking about, and kids around the beach and thing, but I just wondered.
This is needed to operate the the centre.
Yes, absolutely.
This
So
gives the parents some first aid skills.
Yeah.
also, play centres are solely run by parent support, and I believe that they all need to have their first aid certificates to be able to operate at the centre. So it's a critical component of what they're doing. And if you think that it requires non-working parents, where paying for a first aid certificate, a couple of $100 is quite a huge commitment for them.
So what are we offering at the moment?
Well, nothing, but I'd support $1,000 actually.
For the
Yeah,
placement.
yeah, if we've got 1,000, we've got 1,000, I think it's kind of where we fit with these applications.
So you're at 33,778.
So with number 18, if you go back to 18, so you'd be comfortable with 3,000, would you, Terry?
Yeah, I'd be happy with $3,000. Like they don't ask for a lot, and they do. It is a great asset to town, and something they're really trying to really push.
I'd be comfortable with 3. Dave?
Yeah, I think so. They've got a lot of work to do, haven't they? So yeah, I would say 3, yeah.
So how does that leave?
That's 33,778.
And what about with the board riders?
Board riders, they got 1,500.
I'd be.
Yeah, again, I support board riders 100%. For $2,000, I support this one, but $500 more.
$2,000. Okay, you're at 34,278.
And just to confirm, the ones that we have parked, like the Mataviki Festival, that is definitely because the funds from last year have been moved over, haven't they? So
yeah.
They have, although what they're looking for this year is
there's a lot more.
Is a lot more than lights and banners and things, but not what they've traditionally done.
What was the carryover amount for Matariki Festival?
A couple of thousand from memory.
Yeah, they've got their dollars.
So.
Up the list a bit further.
Ricky, so last year they received 3,000.
3,000.
Right.
So they got the 3,000 to use this year.
So the Lions Club Day, be happy with where they're going with them? Obviously given them a couple of shots.
There's only one for the Lions Club.
Centre
Are they
Parade.
doing something else down the line?
Centre Parade.
Centre Parade, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only one. If we could fit some money in for that, that'd be good, because it is something that certainly brings a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
So at this stage they applied for 1,050 and you've granted the full grant.
Everyone seemed to think that was, yeah, that's fine, 15.
The other one I'd like to look at a little bit more, because we've been a bit generous to the others at the Arts Collective, because they're doing a big function up at the golf club. We're giving them a couple of grand, maybe 2.5.
But they had catering in there. I would have thought the ticket holders would pay for their catering.
Sorry?
Wasn't
But they're going to pay for all the art, except the artists up and normal things. It's quite a event, and they haven't done any funding this year through the Thames-Coromandel because of the.
But they sell tickets for that event, don't they?
Yes, tickets.
And but they had budget in there, as I recall, for food and beverage or something.
There is some finger food as part of it.
Yeah, wouldn't that be covered by the ticket sales?
There is, but there's a whole lot of frames that somebody's built, stands and things that go on there.
No, I appreciate that, but included in their application was the, if I haven't got it in front of me now, but I thought that it was.
Eileen has all the applications.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at, sir?
Benefit community.
Arts
Community project.
So what were we asking, sorry, about the Arts Collective?
Just
to have
$500 half of what they're asking for.
Yeah, they had.
And what's the remaining balance now?
So you're at 34,278.
Another $3,000.
And so just to confirm again, sorry, so also the Whangamata RSA, those, they have costs from last year?
They've got money for Anzac Day, yeah.
That children's Halloween event, we attended that last year, and that got a tremendous amount of backing in that for it. So if there's 3 left, could we go?
A few more $500.
You've got 2,700 left.
Yeah.
Well, just to go back to Terry's one with the Arts Collective, they've got a budget of 6,028, but half of that, 3,000, is for catering. I don't think we should be funding catering. So that would leave 3,000. So I'd be happy, which is for your trestles and your flyers.
For £3,000.
For £3,000.
Okay.
So I'd be happy to go to 3, which is.
So that's Arts Collective.
So how much does that leave for the Halloween?
Hang on.
2.5.
Halloween, they're asking 1,500 for Halloween.
So if we go to £3,000 there.
That's an extra
So you're now 35,278.
35,278.
37 is 28237. So that's 117. So you,
Was there a change for Halloween?
Well, a suggestion that we put something in. It had a medium rating.
I'm supportive of that. I didn't put any allocation towards the RSA in my sheet that I sent through, just because of the historical.
So what did
Well,
you,
that was only for number
Yeah.
29. Yeah.
750, is that what you're saying?
1,000.
1,000.
Arts Collective.
1,000, okay.
Okay, so what, sorry, you want to give?
1,000 to number 30. The
What does that
Halloween.
leave, Marlene?
Hang on. So we want to give 1,000 to the Halloween event. So
$600.
that's 36,278.
What's left? How much?
36,278. So you've got
$700.
$700.
Want to go to the pub?
Oh, I'm sure of it. Can't do anything.
Well, what about the wellness? Should, we didn't, I've heard what they said today, although they haven't explored other funding opportunities, but it is an important issue.
Yeah, ideally they would partner with the Hope Walk, because then that was fully supported by residents. But then I imagine whatever funding we give them will still go to an appropriate place. So whether it be their drop-in morning tea or so, I'm supportive of giving them a few extra hundred.
So that's number 11. If we made that, say, 1,400.
8.
Yeah.
45. I'm just going back through the figures to make sure we are right. 750, 1,800, 500, 0, 1,050, 0, 1,500, 3,000, 3,600, 1,819,
$8.
0, 209, 0, 1,000. Yep, that's 2,000.
We'll all put in $2.
Yep, that's 2,000.
Just get a final total here.
It's got no reserves this year.
Okay, hang on a minute. What about, so we've got 1,000. What have we got? 1,400 there for
For wellness.
oh, 1,400, yeah.
So no Halloween.
0, 1,400, 2,000, 0, 1,000, 1,100, 1,000, yeah.
What's that up to?
36,278.
Did you put in the 1,400 for wellness?
No. Well, sorry, what was the Whangamata wellness one?
Wellness will probably start. It's about the electrical on the list.
No.
Oh, well, this one, there was
They do it.
Make it 1,400.
So, sorry, so what did you say?
1,400 total.
Okay, so that brings us down to 36,928. So you've got
No, we'll just save the rest.
$30.
$70.
$30 left.
No, okay, thanks for your patience. So as circulated earlier, the changes we're suggesting is that Arts Collective goes from 2,000 to 3,000. Wellness Whangamata goes from 750 to 1,400. The multi-sport goes from 1,750 to 3,000. Only Mana residents for the insurance goes to 1,819 and 209. The Whangamata Play Centre gets $1,000 for first aid. Board riders increases to 2,000. and the Halloween gets 1,000, and that leaves $60 left over, which we'll just leave. So that's, thanks everyone, if everyone's happy with those, so will someone like to move?
I'll move.
Dave, seconded by Tamsin. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Well done, everyone. It was not an easy task. I'd love to be able to give a lot of them more, but that's what the budget is. Okay, we're now moving on to 3.1.
And I think Eileen's speaking this one.
Eileen, have you got anything you want to share with us on that? This is the reserves.
Oh, yeah, okay, Derek asked me to speak, answer any questions, if anybody's got any questions on the reserve concession application.
Yeah, I've got a reserve question. Gather and Roam Limited will also applied for a 10 a.m. to 9 a.m. licence at Harbour, is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
From Sunday to Tuesday here and Wednesday to Saturday. So are they going to run 2 trucks or something? What's happening there?
I'm not sure, but I would be picking that they would be deciding which day they want to do where. But the
They're covering their butts so they can operate wherever they want to.
Yeah, so and the Sunday to Tuesday works in with the other, as you can see down there, with the Dandelion food truck.
Yeah.
So they're only Wednesday to Saturday, so it would mean that there will be a food truck down at Beach Road in Island View between the Dandelion and these guys every day.
So there won't be any double ups, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there won't be any double ups. So.
Question about Island View Reserve. We have had last year and presumably this year the Sunday markets there, which have been well attended, and they have coffee and food there. Would we be wanting them to also be competing with the
I think there's cohesion there, so I don't think it would be a conflict.
I think these guys are actually part of that market.
And also, they were only planning on doing 5 weekends, I think, this year. From my understanding, it's a limited number of weekends, so not as many as they did.
Okay, so don't see that as an issue.
Question again.
I mean, you can make that as a condition of the concession, is that liaising with the other concessionaires.
Yeah, that was something to say. And is Derek happy that, about what they're bringing to the job and where they're going to be and the signs and all those things?
Yeah. So those concessions would all be the same. We just signage at their concession, working with the other ones.
Right. Okay.
Through the chair,
yeah.
In Island View are they going to be part?
The map shows something.
I know.
So that map shows the same places where you approved Dandelion. That's what the concession is. So the Dandelion's going to be there on the Wednesday to whatever, and then this other one, Gather and Roam, will be in that same place those days that the Dandelion's not there.
So they're quiet operating vehicles, are they? Remember you had that issue with one another.
Portable generator.
Yeah.
Big generating.
I'm supportive of
Good point that I think Sandra makes about there's a generator, I think something that was happening in Hunt Road, so are they going to have generators or are they going to put a power main something?
We don't have power on that site yet.
The voters, if they start up early, can be incredibly disturbing to the voters.
I think these are 9 to 3 or something.
Yeah.
10 to 3.
Just
10. They're starting at 10.
Yeah, everyone's out of bed by then. So someone like to move those recommendations? Tamsin, seconded by Gary. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Yeah, Tamsin and Gary.
French cafe.
So we move on to item 4.1, Community Service Awards. And who would like to speak to this? Stephen, welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Historically, the community service awards have been run every 2 years, and a subcommittee of council has considered applications from the whole district, and 2 community service awards have been granted. Council considered this matter and actually thought it was more appropriate that it was dealt with at a community board level, and there could be 2 community service awards per community board area, and all of the recipients would receive their awards at a council meeting on the 8th of December. So it was really the suggestion from council, which not nodding, it seemed to be a community recognition done at a community level. So it seemed to be appropriate. The teams all ready to go to advertise and get it all done, because we were ready to do it for the district-wide process. So we're just quickly going around the community boards and making sure everyone's okay with that. I guess if you're not okay with that, it's okay, you just won't recognise anyone from your community.
No, sounds wonderful.
Yep.
Everyone happy with the proposal?
Yeah, great idea.
So moved by Dave, seconded by Kay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
So we'll bring the nominations back to the community board.
Okay.
I just wondered, the resolution at council, is it on a ward basis or a board basis?
A board, mini board, because we had 2 here, one for Torah, one for.
Yeah.
Each
We
community
made it
board.
on.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
That's the intention.
I think it was a committee.
We might have to have a minor amendment to the minutes.
We can check that.
Okay, we're now on to 4.2, the action schedule, and we have it there, so.
Bruce,
So, anyone got any questions on item 4.2?
who's flogging the Island View flying fox equipment?
Yeah. What are they doing with it? What are they blocking?
The seat you sit on.
The whole contraption. The last time they cut the wire and took the wire and everything.
Could it be people who are finding the noise of our neighbours? We should sit there.
That's not super noisy, is it?
Doesn't go all around.
Anyway, that's repaired, but that's great.
Yeah.
That's closed, that's closed.
So,
Julia's going to write to the Vodafone, that's a tick on.
No, I'll ring the CEO.
Yes, she's ringing.
so this is where you could have discussed the scrub at Island View, Kay, but you.
Yeah, this is an opportunity.
Yeah, but I'm coming to that.
So Island View was, the top was removed and then it's just been left. So was the plan to come back and level it, Bruce? Was it?
So it touched on that, the work program, so I'm going to double check with Derek what the plan is there.
Yeah.
Definitely plan to do something, but
Come back and
there was some work required to try to sort it out. Yeah, definitely. But the first thing was to get rid of all that scrub and deal with it. It was quite, it was probably more involved than initially thought as well. Some of the stuff there was quite thick, you know.
I could have told you that.
Yeah, I think you probably did tell us that.
And remember.
Disappointed if you hadn't.
Yeah.
I just want to make note of the road closure.
Hang on, excuse me, Mr. I'm finished with Island View yet.
Oh, sorry. Right, I'll let you carry on.
I sort of was looking at the brief that came out about Island View after it's been cleared,
Yes.
and they were talking about planting some bushes or something.
Yeah, I'll check.
I want to know where they're going to put those, because we want it for parking.
So do
We
we
don't
need,
want any bushes.
so do we need parking if we're using the other car type?
We do.
Do
I think it's worthwhile having a discussion in the future
We need
workshop,
to,
make sure we're all on
look
the
at,
same page.
Yeah.
because you put that
Then you can have
retaining
have that
But it's
discussion
also
with
like
the
talking about
health department.
From school, yeah.
So we need more public.
Island View's go around the big tree, carry around to the other
So I
beach.
don't want it planted in a whole lot of fancy trees.
We will have that discussion, Kay. People will cut the trees down anyway if we do like.
I will.
Yeah, so the other big species, yeah, halfway down there.
Thank you, Kay. We now know who's doing it around the district.
That's what they did up.
Okay, so if there are no further questions, we'll, someone like to move that report?
Okay, we finished it.
Well,
Well, you were too busy talking over
We
there.
were waiting for you to finish.
Yeah, we were.
Did you finish with Bruce?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Terry, you've got something you want to ask?
So the road closure proposal, staff connect enterprise on task, and we thank staff for that. The person's been very good with setting that up. And that big day is the road, street parties on the 5th of September. There's no other day, it's that day. Shut the street off, both ends. People bring all their goods out in the street. They've got buskers coming, they've got some art, they've got some, a fashion parade using the op shop stuff. That'll be interesting. So
they got the ukuleles.
Jan Kay will be there with the ukulele. Fantastic, really good for the town, and hopefully it's a success. So
Not going to be a liquor, is there?
Of course.
And the next one.
We've got a liquor ban down that street, remember?
No, you have a drink. It's fine. The next one was the Harbour walkway, and it says the ecological report and archaeological report was completed. Does that mean they were satisfactory?
I believe so, yes, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we just got to wait for the long-term plan for that.
Yeah.
And the last one was the Liverpool Project. There's a workshop to be planned for that. Have we got a date for that?
No date at this stage, no.
Are we going to get that sometime?
So it's probably a community law workshop, I'd suggest. I can't actually find one here, but I'd suggest a community law workshop to look at your priorities and look at what you want to put forward for the LGP.
So we'll make a date and come back to you?
We've got a workshop coming up next week.
We've got one on the 17th.
That's what it's in there?
So we can
put it in there.
we can make it on this Monday the 17th.
Can you put on your action schedule, please, consideration of Pat Bagwood's
Tui Road.
In the long-term plan.
Footpath.
Footpath.
The ladies footpath, okay?
No, those are infrastructure items, nip curb, footpaths, etc. We do need to look at that.
But if it's in writing, that consideration is given to them.
We know why Kiwi.
There's a platform.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, any other comments?
Not next door.
It's been moved by Kay, seconded by Dave. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Right, members' reports. Starting with you, Kay.
I like
Who?
I attended the Library meeting. I've had a few comments that I've hopefully redirected to the council on the information centre, seeing I'm no longer in that, and I said it sour grapes if I carry anything forward, so I have nothing to do with it, so I've rebooted them to the council. And that's about it.
Thank you, Kay. Dave.
I've spoken about the Whangamata meeting. The other thing that's still of concern to people, and I'm getting phone calls about, is the power cuts that are still continuing to happen. And not just in the area where they were from Port Road on, but also over Turahonga, Toby, and up the main road, and then on the other side of the marina, from Whangamata, just over the marina side, was black right through there too. So we're still having a lot of trouble with those. You were having a meeting with them the next day after our meeting. You were talking to PowerCo. Did anything come out of it?
Yeah, so we did have that meeting, but basically it's the process of getting the complaints to PowerCo. So I didn't know that there were power cuts happening over there. The girls out the front have had complaints about up the drive. Yeah. So I went to Broad Spectrum and Mackay's who have to come out to see if it's just the pole or not. They had a backlog because we'd had all the storms, so but they were onto it, but I didn't realise they were still going on. So PowerCo can't do anything until Mackay's have pushed that button. So we need to, as long as those people have been coming in and loading those requests for service and telling us, then it should be going through the system. But I can follow up to see what's been happening with those requests.
It must be only a section over there though, Dave, because we haven't had any since the last meeting.
Yeah, no, it was only down through there, but across the main road, there was only 2 street lights down by Takuri that were on, and then the rest of them were out from there through, so it must be a bank, 2 banks that went down.
And I think Eileen's right, if they don't know, nothing happens, so getting that communication out somehow to get it reported back through the system is really, really important, otherwise it just doesn't happen.
I've been telling them that, and they have been doing that in relation to some of them, you know. But we did community patrol of Saturday a week ago, and they were out round by the drive and all round through there at that time too. I think it was the Saturday.
I'll follow it up with Broad Spectrum to find out where those RFSs have been.
Thank you. It just seems a clumsy sort of system with so many people involved, you know, with Powerco, Mackay's, Broad Spectrum, and that. Is there any way of shortening that?
Through the chair, so Eileen's right, it goes to Broad Spectrum firstly, who are our contractors, and they look after the street lights. So they look after the poles and the lights, which are ours, but the supply is via Powerco. So it's very similar to at home, you know what I mean? Like, you know, you get your power at home, and so, you know, we'll get an RFS if someone comes in, or they load it online and put it through and say this area of town is out. It'll go through Broad Spectrum. They'll have a look and go, look, it's not just one light where a bulb's blown or a bulb's, you know, damaged. Okay, now they forward onto Powerco, and then it goes into their system. It can take a number of weeks before they get those issues resolved, because there can be some bigger issues at play around the power supply, around fuses and all the rest of it. So we've got a few around the district actually that are out. So there's some in Coromandel that are out, some Rangi, and again, everyone's just kind of waiting for Powerco to get those resolved. But there's a few steps they do have to go through. But again, just bring it back to what we said at the beginning, and I think Terry has echoed those, is just try and get them all loaded through the RFS system. That puts a bit more pressure on to get things resolved. But I understand it's frustrating, the time delays.
One of the suggestions at the time was put through about, while they're doing this for the putting the fibre through, that they should, particularly with one of them that was supposed to be 2 underground units and 2 power poles that were causing trouble about getting them to shoot through another line at the same time. Was that carried or anything at the meeting?
No, but there is a meeting with, you know, Chorus coming up, and you should all go to it if you can. It's about fibre coming into town, but it's very hard to get those networks to work together, but it'd be great if they called once and did those things. It's a good discussion to have with them.
Is that the one at the Whangamata on Wednesday next week?
Yeah, next Wednesday.
And you get a lot of infrastructure breakdowns when they start going through.
They're drilling.
And so we've got a backlog, we've got a front log of potentially 2 more years of potential breakdowns as a result of putting all that cabling in.
Are they responsible for those, or do we have to pay for them?
Only the ones that happen at the time, when they go down the road, bring Bruce.
Terry's that's been part of the increased costs that we've had, because they were never budgeted.
Done next Wednesday, it's week.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And they've been substantial.
Thank you, Dave. Tamsin.
Just what have I been up to last month? Attended my first LGNZ National Council meeting in person, so that was really good to meet everyone face to face rather than little screens. Just continued communication with Aura, 438 pairs, and that was really good to have Daniel along today. He would really like to also present on what they're doing around pest management and control of the mangroves. So didn't think there was enough time to do that today, but potentially if we could have him back.
A workshop, are we going to put it on the parking lot?
Oh yeah, we could do that. Yeah, he's definitely a wealth of knowledge and has lots he wants to add. And then just discussions with Eileen just around that youth strategy, youth council. It wasn't included in the meeting minutes last time, but just interested to understand how that will be communicated to us, and also what happened to the funding that was received in 2017.
We'll do that. Yeah, so that's all ED, Economic Development, ran all that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that funding was 5 years ago, and I they haven't applied for anything.
Okay, it was just because the funding was for a formation of the youth council, so I was just wanting to understand.
I'm not sure, I'd have to ask Lorna White to find out, because it was all, Marlene Perry was dealing with all the youth stuff at the time.
Can we get Lorna to report back to us?
Yeah.
Via email should be fine, doesn't it, to cover the report? What's up to that? Yes. I'll just update you on yesterday. I went up to the transfer station with Helen McCabe and her team to look at a possible seagull centre site up there. From my perspective, the only suitable place is on the right-hand side as you go into the tip. Otherwise, once you've gone through the weighbridge and then you try and have a seagull centre, people have to pay for it and then it gets recycled. People don't want to do that. But there's a grassed area with some trees on the right-hand side, which looks like it may be suitable, but Helen's and her team, there were about 7 of them there yesterday. They're going to go away and think about it, and they'll probably come back to us where they'd like to head forward. But there's a lot of enthusiasm there, but the site isn't particularly friendly for that. There isn't a lot of space. The area behind, which looks good, is an old tip site, and you can't build or do anything on the old tip site. There's issues with what's underneath the ground. So really, it's just a bit on the side as you go in the right-hand side.
It's not very big, is it?
It's not very big. There is also the bottle area they have at the bottom, which is mainly used over Christmas, which overflows with bottles over that period. It's quite a big space there, but I don't think you could really mix the two.
You also got to have place for people to come and go, don't you? You know,
they've got to come in and come out, and we're on state highway, so you've got to be careful about you
really need to be able to go and turn around and
yeah,
a big space.
Drive around, drop your stuff off and come out again, yeah.
Just so you're aware, that area that you're talking about, I think that was where they backfilled from when they did the marina, and we planted some trees down there along the line there, and it was really, really hard going. There was full of rocks and everything like that. So for any foundation area, that it could be quite expensive there.
Yeah, it was something that need to be looked at. Yeah.
What are you allowed to do on an old dump site? Because I was thinking of a 3-sided building.
So through the chair, you can't really put anything on top of an old closed landfill. So we have to cap those closed landfills. They're capped with a layer of clay, and so basically you can't really do anything on top of them for many, many years, because either you punch through the clay, which you can't do and don't want to do, because then you introduce more surface water. So particularly here. The other thing is that you can compress it if you build stuff on top of that clay. You can, depending on how thick it is. So it does get quite tricky. It's generally accepted practice to stay away from doing anything on top of the clay.
How long is many years?
How long is this string?
I think it's about 20 years since it's been that area.
It's got to be 20 years.
If we really want to clean up our oceans, we need to start getting into incineration. Yeah.
Probably has been capped for 20 years. It might be.
It's a long time.
I'm already doing that.
I think it's been kept for 20 years. Still got the ventilation tubes coming out of it.
They've got vents in it, have they? I don't think they've got any gas vents in it.
There will be some.
Yeah, there is some tubing coming out.
Groundwater wells as well.
When do they test those every now and again to see what's...
Yeah. So we have to do testing of gas and testing of groundwater. Right. Probably groundwater wells there to test the leachate and just see what the levels are. Yeah. The idea is cap it and stop more water going in there. It just pushes the leachate out. So, yeah.
Oh, I'll wait and see, I suppose.
Yeah. The other thing I'll just mention is, since it's raised earlier, that I've had some of the residents of Kiwi Road saying to me that they wish they'd never asked for the job to be done. It's taken sort of 2.5 months, and we're still a long way from completion. So,
what was that? Sorry, I missed it.
Kiwi Road, the project was supposed to be finished by the end of June. Thank you, Your Worship, coming along.
Thank you. Sorry, but I've got a 12 o'clock appointment, which I've timed nicely because I'm shouting in my...
Okay, thank you.
Right.
So yeah, just saying that the outcome is good, and the regular flooding that's had been happening isn't happening now, but it's just that the process of getting there has been very very time consuming.
Yeah, going through the chair, apologies on behalf of me that that project didn't, there was a few issues there which didn't quite go as smoothly as what I would have liked. But it was hard to make it on without making a few ends. So.
Yeah, it's been acknowledged.
It's taking a long time.
Very good.
Good things take time.
Oh, sorry, yeah. EW Enterprise Whangamata, we've had a meeting with them, I attended their meeting, they've got an AGM coming up also later in the month. The big event is obviously the street party, they want to get off, and they looked at their structure and essentially what they've got. They've had a few people there for a long time thinking about moving on, so it's a bit of a change of the guard coming on there. Ennis is back in charge of it, and he's quite motivated to get things going. So, yeah, we hope that event's a successful one, and obviously they'll be connected again. They'll do something at the beach hop later in November. Yeah, the Freedom Canning bylaw, you've been told about that coming up. The Shoreline Plans Coastal Panels is selections coming up in September under Avon's direction. And myself, Tony Fox and Robin Sinclair are on that selection committee. And those panels will be decided, and they'll have a big input into what's happening around the coastal environment for the next long time. So quite a big job for those people sitting on that. The PowerCo battery, we've talked briefly about it, but also we had that when there's 10,000 outage and why he was included, the battery didn't kick in. So we've been back to talk to them about that, and they've done some testing and found that they've fixed the problem and it's working continually. But we've asked them to do a test now, a live test, to find out what part of town gets connected and what part of town doesn't get connected. So they'll be communicating that through Eileen and to have that event when it is, so we can understand what's going on there. And what they do tell us is that the network in town has always been set up a whole lot of subdivisions, and so it's not integrated. So we're getting these outages come out, and then they can't figure out why it's not working from another transformer and that. So they're looking at the whole town. They replaced quite a few poles over the last year or so, and now they're trying to integrate those systems so they talk to each other, and so there's a bit of work going on there. The Harbour Care meeting, I went to that also, and they had a presentation just recently and an annual AGM, and John McCoon stepped down. He's got a health issue, and Kerry Gibbs taken over that role. And we thank Kay for all her time and efforts to put onto that. Another community project she's had a lot of engagement in, and a really important committee that does a lot of work for nothing, looking after our biggest asset, the harbour. So they had a seedlings day the other day where there was about 30 of them out there cleaning out the Whangamata, which is fantastic, and great to see that. So they're trying to really get some profile around that, and keep at this job of doing the pests, doing the weeds, doing the mangrove control, and so a great organisation. The last one is around the hub. Remember the hub, the community hub that's on 101 Lindsay. They've been a committee that's been focused on trying to get that project on that place. They presented to council. Before they voted, the chief executive thought the OPEX plan wasn't satisfactory enough in terms of supporting the proposed operation. They've gone away and done an OPEX budget. They've had a report written that's been paid for by council through council. They're asking now that we can represent that to the council and try and get us over the line for them. I'm lobbying councillors and council to try and get that support for this, which has been pretty good. You know that the mayor's not very happy, not comfortable about this going on there, and rather do some other stuff with the land, but we think it's something the community needs and wants. We've even been to the second option that if the marae can't get there, that the school's offering them a small space down there for the marae only. So that means the hub will still have to focus on what they're trying to do over here as well, because I think it's still required. And even these things like pop-up like wellness and community trust and all that may be more involved as well. So I'll just keep you up to date on that. We want to do it and wants to come back through the board and get the direction and go to a council meeting so we can get it signed on.
Thanks, David.
Sue, what's your current support from the councillors?
The councils we brought the 3 councillors from the last triennium over, and they were supported from Thames, but Sally, Christy, Robin and Martin are supportive. You may hear us. So we need 5. John Morrissey supported, we helped them with the Coromandel hub, get through the line. So I think we've got the numbers, but it's one of, sort of tie them down a bit to make sure we get the tick, and then we can go back and present it. Okay.
Thank you. Gary?
Yes, it's communications. It's an interesting issue from TCDC to people to residents. That was highlighted by Williamson Park when suddenly the diggers came in, and to do the drainage, to deal with the drainage problem. It would have been probably good if there had been some notification to people that this was going to happen. And this is one of the things that I think the council needs to take on very much indeed, because it's quite important of why something's being done and why it's being done. And of course it gets back to the other thing which I have raised on occasions. One of the problems is when the council gives approval for something to be done, like a building, and this was all because of the building directly opposite the surf club on the north side. I think there's 4 apartments there, and they got consent to build car parking underneath, which became almost an adjunct to a swimming pool, because it probably should never have been given that consent. So what happened was, I'm sure that at the expense of the council, we've had to do that remedial work, and that's just one thing that we have to be very aware of course, with people building on the waterfront and other obligations that will come there. And we've just seen with the huge damage to the dunes just past the surf club, it's a bit frightening what the power of the sea can do. So I'm sure that will all be taken on board by the staff, but really we need to have people notified of things that are about to happen rather than giving them a shock. And explanation, of course, will make things far easier to accept.
Can I just, sorry. Is that true?
Yep.
Right. I just want to, if I can, do a vote of thanks to Eileen and Jennifer for putting the community plan and the grants thing together. I think it's a lot of work. We've got a big pile of paper. Somebody's done a lot of work on it, so thank you very much.
Yes.
And thank you, Ken, for collating.
Yes.
Gary, can I just ask, how's this roof? Was there any mention of the roof?
No.
Because they'd had a meeting.
No, well, I didn't get to the meeting because I told them that I was available, and they just ignored it. I didn't give them a ring. Does anyone know how much we might talk about a cover over the swimming? $1 million. How much $1 million?
Well, 750,000 plus their costs, but it's about 987,000.
Yeah, well, because it would be a huge asset to compensate.
Exactly.
It could be used all year.
Is John still going to be the president? You know?
I think he is, but I must get hold of John.
Because the AGM's coming up.
Yeah, I must get hold of him because, I've had, what's her name, I've been involved.
Oh, it's this Thursday.
It's this Thursday, well, I can't be there, unfortunately, that won't be. But I'll give John come in the ring and have a chat to him. We only need 10 people, 75 grand, each we've got it done.
Some of these can stand if you just can't make it, Gary. We've got people that help. So
well, I think that would be good. Yeah, well, if you're here, Tamsin, or anyone else, and can liaise with me, and I can sort of help you. Okay. But it would be lovely to have that hall that could be used all year.
Definitely, yeah.
And,
Do we have any sort of feasibility about the actual running, the operation costs of it, if it was operating 12 months a year?
We've been doing this for a long time.
We've got a what do you call it, the grant, a
service level agreement.
Service level agreement with them that pays, how much is it?
Like 35,000 we pay them a year.
So that sort of covers at the moment, but it expands, I don't know.
Yeah, it was my understanding that they struggled to break even on that 35 for this, and that's only a short period of time.
Really need big sponsors for that.
Yeah.
I'll check, but I think it's 35.
Something we need to consider if we're looking at the cover, the operation side as well.
We put in for 500,000.
Yeah.
It'll be still sitting.
Could be costing more now. Okay, well, if that's the end of the members' report, that brings the meeting to a close.
I
So,
move that we close.
And I'll second that.
okay.
Members' reports.